recent El Diario La Prensa headline, La Marca del Suicidio, a mark of suicide, refocused attention on the issue in the Latino community. The story was pegged to figures from the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, that showed that 1 in 6 Latinas attempted suicide between the ages of 11 and 17.
The issue is not new. Some researchers have called the phenomenon a suicidal fit from way back in the late 50s.
So why are these numbers so startling to many, and what is being done to address this grim reality? I spoke with Andrew Kuntz and William Murray, who work for an organization trying to address the issue in the Bronx, and Elaine Rivera, who has reported on the trend. Elaine, I'll start with you. The number of suicide attempts are highest among Latinos, particularly Latinas, and this issue isn't new. You reported on it back in 2006. Why are so many Latinas attempting to commit suicide?
Well, it's a phenomenon that's been taking place for a long time. As we were talking earlier, Luis Zayas saw this in the 70s. You know, young Latinas being admitted to emergency rooms. It's a confluence of factors. It's cultural. It's clashes with family members. It's young women who feel totally alienated. They're living in two different cultures. They're living in a very liberated society, but they have to adhere to their parents' traditional cultural mores. And you know, I would like to preface it with, like, many Latinas are thriving. They're doing well, but usually this is first-generation Latinas, and it's a socioeconomic factor too. So you know, parents who don't really know how to raise their children in this culture where it totally clashes with their belief system where they came from.
Why are so many people startled by this issue? It's not a new topic.
Well, it hasn't really been reported on, and now, but the numbers keep coming out showing the same pattern over and over and over again. I think the most recent data shows that among Latinas, 15% have teenage Latinas have attempted suicide, versus much lower numbers for Black young women and white young women.
Okay, and Will, in 2009 and 2010, Astor services saw a higher number of more serious suicide attempts among the people that you service. What are you guys doing to correct that?
Well, one of the things that we've done is we've made some organizational changes to improve clients' access to care. One of the things we've done is actually create what we call open access. What open access basically is, it allows us to serve the client the same day that they come into the clinic. So they can either walk in, or they can do a referral by phone, and they can come in that day or the next day. They do some very brief paperwork, and they're able to see an intake clinician get started on treatment. So that's really helped us make sure that clients are able to be seen immediately as they want to, whether it's a crisis going on or something that's been going on for some time in the school and the family. They're able to come right in and be seen immediately.
Okay, Elaine, going back to Latinas, what are some of the stresses that they're experiencing?
Well, one is sex education. They don't talk about sex education in many Latino families. And I think it's like a psychologist I quoted in my series of stories. She said, parents believe that if you don't talk about sex, your child won't have sex. Well, you know, we know that's not the case. So they get pregnant, and then they have to drop out of high school. And there's tremendous pressure for young Latinas to be caretakers, especially the older siblings, young Latinas. There's tremendous pressure for them to take care of their younger siblings. They have to take care of their, you know, while their parents are at work, they have to take care of their brothers and sisters. They don't have the freedom that the average American teenager has, like going to movies, you know, going out. They can't have sleepovers. You know, so there is this clash of cultures that's taking place, and they are being pushed to be adults way beyond their years.
Wow.
And so, you know, and also it's many issues, language, feeling like they live in two different worlds. The world that their parents grew up in, they don't understand it. You know, many of them are English dominant versus their parents. And, you know, it's just, you know, a tremendous clash.
Okay. And Andrew, I know you guys have headquarters in the Bronx. What are you guys doing to work with the Latino community there to correct the issue?
Well, we have actually two locations. One is in the North Bronx on Tilden Street, and the other's in the Highbridge section of the Bronx. One of our initiatives is called Clinic Plus, and we send screeners into the middle schools in the neighborhood, and we do some simple screening tools to be able to identify those kids who are at risk. Once they are identified, then we will contact the parents to see if they would like an evaluation so that we can further determine whether their child needs services or not.
And what are experts saying are the root causes of suicide and suicide attempts?
Well, depression is by and large the most prevalent factor in teenage suicide. About half of the children who are identified as depressed are going to go on and have a suicide attempt. And of those children who do attempt suicide, about 7% actually commit suicide.
And Elaine, is that supposed hesitance to therapy and counseling, is that an issue with Latinos?
Yes. Well, it's a stigma in the Latino community. And one of the things I pointed out in my series of stories is that many parents say, well, if you go to a mental health therapist, they say, you're not crazy, go to church, pray, or go talk to your cousin. But there is a huge stigma about seeking therapy, mental health therapy, because you're seen as crazy, which is, so not true. But, that's something that has to be, where the Latino community has to be educated that there's nothing wrong to go see a mental health therapist. And, these young women, they're afraid. They're just really afraid because they don't want to get wreak the wrath of their parents. And so they don't seek the help that they really need.
Andrew, are you finding that's an issue at Astor?
That's one of the issues. When we do an evaluation, we do it on several different levels. Certainly the cultural aspect is extremely important, but there's also family issues too. Some families are more flexible, some families are more rigid. So we also assess the family functioning. And then finally, there's the individual functioning. I mentioned that the presence of a mental illness significantly increases the risk for suicide. There's other risks, too, that are involved, including how acculturated the child is, whether there's been any traumas in the background, whether there has been a past history of suicide attempts, all of which increase the risk.
And Will, have you seen numbers increase in terms of the people attempting suicide?
I can't speak to that, definitely. We have seen, though, an increase of individuals, Latino families, coming to our clinics and seeking our services. And so that's been very, very positive. Families reaching out, and we've been able to establish relationships with families in key and important areas, especially around our Highbridge clinic area as well.
Okay.
I could speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
Is that luckily there is about a 25% reduction over the last decade of teenage suicide. And as Elaine said, the stigma has been an issue in the Latino community that is reducing somewhat. We are seeing families who are more willing to bring their kids in for an evaluation, more willing to be guided by the school or by significant adults who would recommend an evaluation and actually coming in for an evaluation. So we do see a bit of a lessening of that. And because of that, our numbers have gone up for screening and referral.
Well, that's all the time we have for this discussion. Andrew Kuntz, William Murray, and Elaine Rivera, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.